There's a version of you that only exists after midnight. They don't perform. They don't answer to anyone. They just sit, breathe, exist without a function. Everyone else calls it a bad habit, poor discipline, a screen addiction. But they didn't live your day. They didn't sit through the meetings you sat through. They didn't carry what you carried. And I don't think they understand that staying awake isn't always self-destruction. For some people, it's the only form of self-preservation they have left. The question isn't why you can't sleep. The question is, what happens to you if you do? So you worked all day performing a version of yourself that isn't fully you. Not a lie exactly, but not the whole truth either. There were things you didn't say, reactions you swallowed, a version of tired you didn't show anyone because showing it would cost you something. Respect, maybe, or just the image, the one you've spent years maintaining without even consciously deciding to. And then you came home, and the demands didn't stop, they just changed faces. Different voices, same pull. At some point in the evening, the last person who needed something from you finally went quiet. The house settled, and for the first time all day, no one was looking at you. And I think that moment, that specific silence, your nervous system genuinely doesn't know what to do with it. Because here's where it gets a bit strange. What most people assume is happening at midnight, that you're weak, distracted, that you just have no self-control, that assumption completely misses what's actually going on underneath. By the time the day ends, the part of your brain responsible for discipline, planning, decision-making, prefrontal cortex, it's been running at full capacity for 12, 14 hours straight. Neuroimaging research shows that as the waking hours pile up, delta wave activity increases specifically over those prefrontal circuits. The executive brain doesn't gradually wind down. It depletes, like a muscle that's been under tension all day and just can't anymore. So when 11 p.m. comes and some part of you thinks, okay, I should sleep, the brain hears that. It actually agrees. But then it looks at everything between you and unconsciousness. Getting up, walking to the bathroom, brushing teeth, washing your face, turning off the lights, lying in the dark with whatever the day left behind. That sequence, that completely ordinary routine, feels insurmountable. Not because something is wrong with you, because the part of your brain that initiates complex action sequences has nothing left to give. So you stay on the couch. You move your thumb 1 inch across a screen, and that requires almost nothing from you. And somehow, that's where the next 2 hours go. But here's the thing that kept nagging at me when I was looking into this. That explanation, the depletion thing, it only covers part of it. Because even on the slow days, the easy weeks, the nights where the day wasn't actually that hard, you still don't want to sleep. That's not neurological depletion. That's something else entirely. Lena Mueller at the University of Groningen traced this to something called need frustration, pulled from self-determination theory. And the humans have 3 psychological needs that aren't optional: autonomy, the feeling that your choices are yours; competence, the sense that what you're doing actually reflects what you're capable of; and relatedness, genuine connection, not transactional, not functional, actual connection. High-demand life quietly dismantles all 3. You don't really choose your schedule. You perform competence inside roles that often have very little to do with what you're genuinely good at. And the connection you experience throughout the day, the emails, the check-ins, the logistics, it keeps you constantly surrounded by people while somehow leaving you completely alone. That gap, autonomy stripped, competence wasted, connection hollowed out, it creates a kind of psychological debt. And when night finally arrives, something in the psyche goes looking for anything that pays it back. The screen isn't the point. The late hour isn't the point. The point is that the night is the only space in your entire day where no one has scheduled you, where nothing is expected from you, where the performance has no audience. And some part of you, a quiet, exhausted part, is absolutely unwilling to surrender that. There's a concept in developmental psychology called identity foreclosure. James Marcia originally used it to describe adolescents who lock into a role or identity without ever really exploring who they are outside of it. But it reemerges in adulthood, in people under sustained pressure. The reliable one, the provider, the one who holds everything together. People who've been so thoroughly defined by their usefulness to others that somewhere around midnight is the only time they actually remember they exist outside of that. The hobbies got dropped. The things you used to do just because you wanted to, those went first. Then the unstructured time. Then the quiet. And what filled the space was more output, more availability, more performance. The night didn't become precious because it's romantic. It became precious because everything else got taken. And here's the uncomfortable part. Even when the night gives you nothing real, even when you're too tired to read, too drained to create, too gone to do anything except stare at something moving on a screen, you still won't close your eyes, because the alternative is worse. The alternative is that you close your eyes, and the day ends, and tomorrow starts in 7 hours, and tomorrow is the same. Same weight, same roles, same slow disappearance into what everyone needs from you. Staying awake is irrational. You know that. But there's a logic underneath it. Carmen Leby's research at Groningen found that people who feel the least genuine connection during the day show the highest rates of this kind of nighttime refusal, not because they're searching for connection at 1 a.m., but because they've finally landed somewhere they don't have to perform one. You can watch something without managing someone else's reaction to it. You can sit in silence without that silence being read as a problem you need to fix. You can just exist without the weight of what that existence is supposed to produce next. That is not nothing. Even exhausted, even running well past the point where any of this makes rational sense, that is genuinely not nothing. The body is part of this too, and I think this piece gets overlooked a lot. Your nervous system spent the entire day in a state of high alert, sympathetic dominance, heart rate elevated, cortisol up, muscles quietly braced for whatever came next, and that state doesn't just switch off the moment you walk through the door. The body needs actual time to transition, to shift toward the parasympathetic system, the part that governs rest, repair, safety. And in people running chronic, high-demand schedules, that shift is delayed, sometimes by hours. The late-night sitting, the doom scrolling, the nothing, it isn't always avoidance. Sometimes it's the body waiting, biologically stalling until the nervous system finally feels safe enough to be unconscious. The person at 1 a.m. staring at nothing isn't failing at sleep. They're the last one awake after a day that took everything, and they're not ready, not yet, to give up the only hour that didn't ask for a single thing in return. At some point, you have to sit with the question, what would it actually mean to rest? Not sleep, rest. Because sleep is just unconsciousness. Rest means the performance stops. Rest means there's a self somewhere underneath all of it that doesn't need to be reclaimed at midnight because it was never fully surrendered in the first place. Most people never find that. Not because the night failed them, but because the night was never designed to carry this much. It was always a patch, a temporary fix for a fracture that runs much deeper. The real question isn't how to get to bed earlier. It's what would have to change in your days for the nights to stop feeling like the only thing worth protecting. Sit with that one. If something in this reached you, something you don't usually let come to the surface, stick around. That's exactly what we're here for.